So what we are looking at now then is how individuals can make a change to our democracy, how you can have an impact on laws, on policies, how individual people can be active citizens. And one way you can do that is by joining a pressure group. So what is a pressure group then? You might have heard of some of them before. You might have heard of Greenpeace. That's an international pressure group. A pressure group campaigns to try and get something changed, so they can target the government and parliament to try and get laws changed. They can target the media to try and get an issue portrayed in a certain way. They can target the general public to make your feelings, change your opinions on something so you agree with them. Or they can target specific businesses. For example, a lot of animal rights pressure groups will target businesses to stop them testing on animals and things like that. So pressure groups basically are a group of ordinary people who want to get something changed. They see something wrong with society, something they disagree with, and they want to apply pressure to get something changed. So this is one thing pressure groups can do. They can hold demonstrations, which is where they kind of hang around in a specific area where they know people who they want to target will be, hold up signs, chant, those kind of things. This is a really, really famous pressure group. So this is a group called Fathers for Justice. Fathers for Justice are incredibly famous, probably the most famous pressure group of recent history. If you go further back, you might know groups like the suffragettes who campaigned for women to have the right to vote. They're a really famous historical pressure group. So a more modern one who most people have heard of is Fathers for Justice. Now these are a group of ordinary men divorced from their wives and wanted better rights to see their children. So usually when a man and wife get divorced, the wife usually ends up with 90% custody of the child. The dad tends to see the children every other weekend and one night a week. Now these guys wanted it to be more equal. They thought, things are much more equal in society now. Custody should be more equal as well. So they got together, they campaigned, and some of the campaigns that they have done have been absolutely insane. Their signature move is to dress up as superheroes. They've done things like scale Buckingham Palace. They've done things like abseil over the M1, which is the most busy motorway in the country at peak times. They have done things like go on to the National Lottery set where they used to have a programme every week that announced the lottery numbers, and they went on that live on air. They've broken into the Houses of Parliament and released like a purple powder kind of bomb thing while the MPs were all discussing things. So they've done some really extreme events. It's called direct action. They've got arrested. They've probably done their own case more harm than good, because obviously if you've got arrested you're going to have less chance of seeing your own kids. But they've really highlighted the cause of fathers' rights. So much so we teach it you in school now. So these guys were successful in one way because of how much publicity they got. And if you use direct methods, if you use these kind of big events, big stunts, you are always going to get media attention. So you're always going to be spoken about, whether it's in a good way or a bad way. You are always going to have the media there. Okay, lots of other pressure groups, lots to do with animals as well. So things like the Animal Liberation Front, the RSPCA. Even though the RSPCA are a charity to help look after animals, they also try and apply pressure. They try and turn public opinion. So if you see a lot of their adverts, it's about getting public opinion against people who are cruel to animals and those kind of things as well. Okay, lots of things in America, so loads of pressure groups in America. For example, some places there, like Flint, they have unsafe water to drink, so they have to campaign against that. In your worksheet, you have got a list of issues that you could be concerned by. All I want you to do is to rank them in order of what concerns you most. So you've got climate change. The video that you could watch from the worksheet is of some children explaining climate change to Donald Trump. So obviously climate change really come to a head in 2019 with Greta Thunberg and Extinction Rebellion. There's another pressure group, Extinction Rebellion. These guys blocked off a lot of streets in London, camped out in London, trying to get people to be aware of how serious climate change is and the fact that actually, unless we sort it out, none of these other things are going to matter anyway. Government cuts since the 2010 austerity measures came in, where youth services have been taken away, special schools removed, social services removed to a certain extent, all of those kind of things, how that's had a massive impact on young people in particular, university fees going up and all those things. What else was on there? So you've got anti-racism, you've got issues with LGBTQ plus rights, human rights in general, fathers' rights we've got on there. Any issues in particular that you feel really strongly about that you'd be willing to join a pressure group about? Okay, so pressure groups. They can be described as an organised group that does not put candidates up for election. They are not a political party. You don't go and vote for them. They're not interested in that. They want to influence government policy or legislation to change a law. They want to change public opinion. They want to change something about a business, or they want to get the media to portray something in a certain way. They might also be described as interest groups, lobby groups, or protest groups. They actively lobby MPs and the media. So lobby MPs means that they might email their MP, they might go down to the Houses of Parliament, go into central lobby, try and get the attention of their MP and discuss an issue with them. And these are some pressure groups. You may have heard of some of them. Animal Liberation Front, I'm sure that's the one. Please excuse me if I've got it wrong. There is one animal rights pressure group. They wanted a particular business to stop testing on animals. So they protested to them, no change, the business wasn't going to change what they were doing. So what they did, they went to the grave of the grandmother of the boss of the business. They dug up her grave and kidnapped the body and said, until you stop testing on animals, we won't give you your grandmother's dead body back. As you can imagine, this caused absolute uproar. They were arrested. I don't think the company stopped testing on animals. So it was a stunt that went really, really wrong. Things like Greenpeace, then, so that's an international pressure group, can also be known as an NGO, a non-governmental organisation, and we'll look at that more in Life in Modern Britain. Amnesty International, exactly the same, an international pressure group that fights for human rights. Okay, so the two types of action they can take. To start with, you've got direct action. This is when you are physically attempting to hinder an activity that's seen as wrong, or you're gaining attention through spectacular actions. These can be illegal actions, they can be dangerous, but they don't have to be. They don't have to be violent, but they can be. So, for example, it could be going and vandalising a business. It could be what Fathers for Justice did when they scaled up Buckingham Palace, or it can just be a grand gesture. So, for example, when I've been on marches with my union, and a union's a pressure group, when we've been on our marches, there were at times 50,000 of us marching through Birmingham. It was all legal, it was all organised, it was all okayed with the council, but it got a lot of media attention. The news were there, radio was there, everything was there. Indirection is much calmer. It's a much more kind of subtle way of protesting, and it's really promoting your issues through education, debate and lobbying. So, for example, every time I sign a petition online or I share a petition on my Facebook, that's indirect action. Every time I email my MP, that's indirect action. All you've got to do, have a go at the ones on the bottom and see which one's which. Press pause. So there are certain targets of pressure groups. I have said earlier in the video, press pause and have a go if you can answer it. Okay, so the targets are, first of all, the government to try and get the law changed. Then you've got the media, you've got public opinion, and you've got businesses. Excuse my cat. All right then, so let's have a look. How can pressure groups influence government policy? How do they use the media? Do you think they get more people involved with politics or put them off? And how could they cause more people to vote? Press pause, have a go at answering some of those questions. Okay, so how can pressure groups influence government policy? Well, if you're a pressure group and you contact your MP and perhaps you might launch an online petition, if your petition gets 100,000 signatures, which using social media isn't that difficult, then it really has to be debated in Parliament. They have to debate that issue. They don't have to, because remember, we've got an uncodified constitution and they don't have to follow the letter of the law in that way. But 9 times out of 10, they will do. They'll let you know when they're going to debate it and the outcome of the debate as well. So essentially, you could be the reason why a law gets changed. Also, if you contact your MP might agree with you and your MP could bring it up in Parliament and it gets discussed that way. How do they use the media to do this? Well, one way is using social media to share ideas, to share petitions, and that's the easiest way to get your 100,000 signatures. They can also use social media to organise events, marches, demonstrations, protests. They can also use it to spread the word of what they want. If they hold a direct action, so if they hold a demonstration or a march or a speech in a public place, or if they do something illegal and the media catches hold of it, then it's going to be publicised as well. So you get more people knowing about your issue, it raises awareness and it spreads that way. Do you think it gets more people involved with politics or put them off? Probably a bit of both, to be honest with you. And also it depends on the methods they use. So for example, lots of people will become interested in an issue if you bring it up. For example, over Corona, I'm walking around with different masks on. I like to have my mask to have a meaning. They may as well as you mean something. So I've got a Black Lives Matter mask. I've got a feminist mask with Ruth Bader Ginsburg on there. I've got a LGBTQ plus rights mask. And I've also got a Free Palestine one. I'm walking around a school with 1,300 people in it, and not many people have got a clue what it means. But people are stopping and asking and talking about it. And then I tell them about the Free Palestine campaign. They tell other people and it's spreading the word. So do pressure groups encourage more people to get involved with politics? Probably yes, because it asks questions, it raises issues. Some could be put off, again, depending on the methods that are used. So Fathers for Justice, they might have actually put people off, because think of all those people who were driving down the M1 and just wanted to get to work. They're probably really annoyed with it and, you know, it gets put off rather than more interested. How could they cause more people to vote? Well, if they've brought up an issue, say it's an environmental pressure group, and a political party takes on board their ideas and promotes those ideas and puts it in their manifesto, then you might be more likely to vote for that party. And there's some answers for you. Okay, some 1-mark questions for you. Press pause and have a go. See if you can research a pressure group. Anyone that you want, have a go. So are pressure groups good or bad for democracy? Well, there's some good points about them and some bad points about them that we've kind of already mentioned. Try and make yourself a little chart. And an 8-mark question. Pressure groups strengthen democracy in the UK by providing citizens with a voice. Considering a range of views, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? And you should include opportunities and barriers to citizen participation in democracy and how citizens can try and bring about political change. So what this question is literally asking is, do pressure groups make the country more democratic, yes or no? So try and have a think, get a couple of points on each side, but make sure you refer to the bullet points. So for example, the first one, opportunities and barriers for citizen participation in democracy. Well, you guys can't vote, you can't participate in democracy by voting, but you could join a pressure group. So actually it eliminates that age barrier, doesn't it? Also, if you're in prison, and any other groups who aren't allowed to vote as well. How citizens can try and bring about political change. It's another good point for pressure groups, strengthening democracy. Signing the petitions. If they release a petition, get 100,000 signatures, then that can be debated in Parliament, can lead to law changes. So yeah, both of those points strengthen democracy. But then what about the other side then? Remember, in these 8-mark questions, you need different points of view, you need case studies. Well, actually, sometimes they can do too much. Maybe if pressure groups are applying this pressure, that actually MPs feel under pressure, literally, to discuss these matters, and it might be something that not all of their constituency are interested in. It might be something only a few people are, and therefore it could actually overemphasise their point. Perhaps people like Fathers for Justice, who might use really direct methods, might go too far and damage democracy rather than strengthen it. For example, and sorry, excuse my cat again, one of the main reasons that Fathers for Justice kind of dropped off was that they were found to have plotted to kidnap the then Prime Minister David Cameron's son. They denied it. However, this is one of the main reasons why they've stopped. Now, if we're spending all our time listening to them, is that dulling out the voices of other people who have got other issues? Are we paying them too much attention? Have a go at answering the question.